Let me get some more, get another thing here to clean off my brush. Use this. And then we can begin painting something actually for real. And as I said, oops, shaky light there. As I said, today I'd like to take a brief pause from working on the Eldar Guardians. We'll get around to it in this session, probably, maybe, but I was thinking about this, painting this baby. I showed it earlier, comparing it to the designs of the Falcon Grav tank, but this here is the weapons platform for Eldar, and here are I have the weapon crew for these guys, and I've actually started them as well. I painted the the base is still, the sand is still wet. When I was doing the helmets for the rest of these guys, I also decided to work on the helmets for these old models. And actually, one of them I applied the bright yellow color straight onto the gray primer, and another one I went back and put white primer, and then applied the yellow. And they look pretty close, I think, but it's actually this one here on the left that has the gray primer helmet, and you can actually still kind of see the dark gray coming through the helmet, whereas this one seems just really bright, a little brighter. But I think if you're to take like a quick look at all of these guys together, you wouldn't really notice, so it's fine. So yeah, how about we paint these guys today as a little break from working on all these Eldar Guardians. I've got this little tub here filled with arms. They're arms and guns that need to be finished off, but I think they're going to look really good once I put the arms on. Before I do the arms, I'll need to paint the gem, actually. So previously I mentioned how I don't want to... I'm resistant to the notion of painting every single gem on these guys, or on any of these Eldar models. But at the very least, there's this one central gem on the chest here that I think I'll paint in red or green. At the very least, I'll do that. Because presumably that's like their true soul stone, where, like, you know, their soul will go into when they die, or something like that. I've kind of forgotten about Eldar lore. The finer points of Eldar lore. So, with this model here, I'm thinking about keeping it mostly blue. And we're going to use this one, Cantor Blue, and then including like a kind of like decorative stripe on this part here to be the yellow, like a yellow decorative stripe. That's the plan. And I'm wondering if at this point, should I paint it, should I draw it? Now we'll just color the whole thing blue and then we'll put white paint over it. But I'm thinking about maybe looking up, I'm also going to be shaking paint for the time being, so pardon me. Let's just have a little shaking session. You guys can, I'll put this on screen so you guys can see something a little more interesting while I'm shaking. While I'm doing that too, let's try multitask. And I want to look up pictures of Aeldari color scheme. Aeldari Eldar. Because I want to see what other people have done for the Eldar and the color scheme of the weapons platform. Get some ideas. Let me type this in. Aeldari Eldar. Get some ideas. Some really cool color schemes, actually. I think it'd be really fun to have an army filled with a mixed collection of models dating from the 80s all the way up to 2001. I think that'd be kind of fun. Eldar. Anti-Grav. Oh, okay. Here we go. Looking at some examples. And it seems like some old school color schemes have this portion here all in yellow, and then this portion here be the dark blue part. That is interesting, but I think I'll stick with my idea that I had originally. Yeah. All right. I'm also thinking about maybe for my larger vehicles and like important models, I can try and do the camouflage pattern, but I haven't decided yet. All right, I think we're sufficiently shaken up now. I think we're shook, legit shook. And here we go with the wet palette. Just gonna put some of this Cantor blue onto the palette. Start off with that much. I don't think we should apply too much. And we're gonna mix a little bit of water to make sure it's a little smoother to apply. Again, we want to put on thin coats. The official Warhammer YouTube channel has a lot of painting videos. They're very good, and they're very like beginner friendly. And one of the main presenters that shows you how to like paint stuff, he's always talking about too thin coats. Became like a meme at a certain point. So let's get started. The reason why I put this paper down was I don't want to get any paint on my cutting board. I actually cleaned up my cutting board. I painted it. I cleaned up as much of the crappy marks and stuff that was on it, just so that it looks a lot nicer for the stream. But because I did that, now I don't want it to get dirty, which is kind of why I have it here in the first place. But anyways. I'm also realizing now that this thing might be easier to paint if I had mounted it to a base. So I actually might do that. Back then, it wasn't like big vehicles like this. Well, it's not big, but larger war machines and stuff didn't come with bases. But these days, I'm pretty sure that they should be on a base of some kind. So I will need to figure that out. Let's take a look in the examples that other people have painted. What did they do for the interior parts? A little hard to tell. It seems like the interior, like the inside machinery should be bleached bone. So we might do that. We might stick with that plan. Can probably get away with doing this. Kind of just making it up as I go along, to be honest. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna have to mount this on something to make it easier to paint. Ooh, let me check something. Am I streaming in the right category? Oh god. I forgot to write because I was having some difficulty streaming. Getting my stream started, that I didn't input the information wasn't input. There we go. That's so annoying. Okay. Should be good now. Okay. Let's clean off my brush. But I also kind of don't want to glue this guy onto a base just yet, because there's all this underneath detail that I need to do as well. Let's see. And if I glue it onto a base, I can't get that detail. One thing that I've been thinking about too, with regards to Eldar models, Bacon, I feel like the category doesn't matter so long as you have the right tags. Yeah, I did have the right tags, I think. Let me see. Let's add a Warhammer tag. Oop, I don't actually have the Warhammer tag. Is there a Warhammer tag? War. Oh, see, there's no Warhammer tag though, but there's miniature figures and war games and painting, so I guess that's good enough? I don't know. Well, anyways. Okay. Still some blue areas that we haven't applied paint to just yet. Oh yeah, that's another thing I was thinking about too, was maybe not today, but another day soon, I'll probably stream in the arts and crafts category, because I actually have some arts and crafts that I need to do. Or what did they call it? Crafting and making. I have some crafting and making to do. I am planning on making a... Sorry while I concentrate too. I'm trying to talk while concentrating on these areas. I'm planning on making a photo box, a photo booth. We had one previously. Night Trap made one, just out of cardboard, but obviously, again, that's not something that needed to be brought over in a move. Seeing as how like it was just simply made out of cardboard. So yeah, I was planning on making another one of those. I'm gonna have to go out and buy some foam core maybe, or just make it out of another box. We'll see. I kind of would like to make one that's collapsible. So yeah, I'm sort of looking on YouTube, seeing what my options are in terms of what people have made, how have people have made photo boxes. Presently, the way I take my photos for miniatures and stuff, I just sort of set up like 2 pieces of white paper, and then I have two bright lights sort of to blow out the shadows, and the results are fine. And I'd happily just continue doing that method. However, it's more an issue of like portability and like if I want to set something up quickly, that's not very conducive to that. For setting up quickly, that is. So yeah, that's mostly why I want to do a something that's collapsible, made out of cardboard or in a box or something. I really haven't 100% figured out what I want to do, but I definitely want to make that. The other thing I want to make also is a kind of what's the best word for it? Like a stage or a set for taking pictures of miniatures. And by that I mean like kind of like a piece of terrain, like a rocky wall. Just something to set behind my miniatures, and then put like a painted background, and then situate that all in the photo box, if that makes sense. But that's the plan. I've seen some other hobbyists do that, and I really like the results. It just makes it more atmospheric rather than taking pictures of miniatures in like a black over in front of a black background or something like that. It's just a little nicer. Let's clean our brush and get a drink of our tea. So I've been streaming for almost an hour. Let's go right to the hour mark, and then I'll take a little break. Eat some pretzels. I have some pretzels by my side. That's a very good, just these tiny little miniature pretzels. That's a good snack to have while you're painting or gaming, just because it's not greasy, so it doesn't get your controller all greasy or something like that. Okay. Let's see. Not sure. Okay. Let's paint this blue, and then actually I think it'll be better to do the lighter color first and then the blue. Especially because a lot of the lighter colors for this are going to be, it's like the lowest part of the model. You always want to kind of paint the lowest layer of the model. If you imagine like clothing, you always want to paint like the undershirt first before the jacket, right? And I've kind of painted like the jacket, so to speak, first, because I'm dumb. Slapping it on. So a number of indie game developers have been streaming or making videos of the Valve Index, the Valve handheld device. It's not Index. the Valve handheld. They've been getting it shipped to them to try out their games to see how it performs. And the developer of Hellish Quart, if you'll remember, that's like the Polish developed sword-based sword combat game. He's been showing that the game worked pretty much straight out the box. His game, which is pretty cool. It's a good piece of technology, I think. This is gonna be... Alright, I think we have to let the paint dry a bit. It's a wee bit wet. Okay, getting there. Sorry if this is off camera. Trying to get the right angle. Yeah, again, my tendency to want to paint models all assembled has somewhat bitten me in the butt just now. I feel like, again, it would be much easier to do this in sub-assemblies. And I could have, and I probably even still can take this apart. It's not that big of a deal. You know what, let's try that, because I think it'll be better in the long run to do that. Because I'm pretty sure I just used super glue, so it should just snap right off. Let's see. Oh! Wow, this is glued on hard. I thought it would come off. Holy crap. Okay. Maybe not. Let's take a quick second to... I think I got my fingerprints on the paint just now. Just kind of make sure that that's not a thing. When this dries, let's take another shot at ripping, taking this thing apart. All right, so now we got to think about these guys. What are we gonna do about these old Eldar chaps? Well, we're gonna paint them the same again. These guys have trench coats, and I was kind of wondering if I should paint the trench coats a different color. You know, maybe like brown or black. But I think we'll just stick with the blue again. So, because there's not enough armor exposed on these guys, which would have been blue. So they would end up looking kind of awkward, I think, if we don't do that. But I think I'll glue these guys onto something so that they're easier to handle. Let's see. Oh, excuse me. Let's put these arms here, and we can glue them onto this, and they'll be easier to handle for the time being. I think we'll do that. But let's take a little break right now. That'll help us wait till this blue paint dries, and then when we get back, we'll do that. All right, so I'll be right back. Alright, I'm back. Just browsing some images on Google, checking out different color schemes for the Eldar Aleitok craft world, seeing some ideas, what people have done. Pretty interesting stuff. Generally, the idea is the same that I have, but there's always room to kind of do what you want. Alright, let's see if I can... Okay. See if I can break this off. Well, let's give this a bit more chance to dry the paint, and we'll glue these guys on to this, so just so that I can handle them a little better and I don't have to touch the actual model. Plastic models, it's not a big deal if you're gonna kind of handle them, but with metal models you always kind of run the risk of chipping the paint and all that. At some point I'll probably invest in a painting handle. I was strongly considering buying one like a year or two ago, but I just never got around to it. But I definitely consider getting one. But for now, I just kind of, if a model really needs to be handled with care, I'll just kind of put a couple dabs of glue and just glue them down to something like this, and that usually does the job. And you can always kind of file away the glue, clean it up later. Okay, let's let that dry. Just like I did here, right? See this one? I glued her to this, and I don't actually have to touch the model. I have to actually finish this model pretty soon. That was another one that I wanted to finish before the end of the month, so I should get on to finishing that. It's pretty much done, to be honest. I have to kind of mess around with the sword to get it looking the way I want, but yeah, it's good enough. It's getting there. Okay, well, that needs to dry. And now let's try and take this thing apart. Oh man, I don't think we can. Oh, there we go. Nice. Now what about this? Okay, we did it. Okay, that's good. At least we can work on the parts and separately now, because I think it would be very annoying to paint them all assembled. Alright, just give me a second. Alright, so now this will be easier to do. Let's take a look if there's any kind of like weird glue markings or anything that are gonna impede our way. Did I even put glue on this? I think I just kind of applied pressure to make it fit. Well, alright. So this will be easier to work on from now on. This is a plasma cannon. And here's the platform itself. And we'll be able to get into all the details now, so that's good. Yeah, I'm definitely converting to team sub-assemblies. I used to just love to paint a model completely assembled, but I think that really was a thing that you could get away with metal models that were, you know, primarily, you know, one or two pieces. But now with models getting a whole lot more complex, it makes sense to do them in separate parts, because you're not going to be able to reach all the little detail areas. Let's see if Bacon can guess what soundtrack this is, if he's still around. This is, again, something that I just found in my iTunes, and I was like, oh. And again, I haven't played this game much. I just borrowed it from him. This is the way that the gun attaches or rests on this shield part. It's really just pressure, so I kind of don't want to get paint onto like everywhere, because it's just gonna kind of make it a tighter fit. Let's do this so that we don't get paint on our my nicely cleaned, newly cleaned cutting board. It's funny, I have this cutting board on here so I don't get my other cutting board messed up, because that's a newish cutting board that I bought with the purpose of streaming and having a clean surface. But then I put this old crappy green one on top, and then I cleaned that so it's not so crappy anymore, and now I'm just putting a piece of paper on top. Okay, we gotta let this dry. Gotta let this dry before we flip it over. Let's take a look. This is a very dark blue, and when I highlight it, you kind of get away from how dark this is. This definitely sounds like battle music. Okay, so does this... Okay, we need to let this dry too. And I don't think I'm gonna put any... Okay, let's get some parts. Let's put some blue on this too. Oh boy. Gotta turn this down a bit. Ooh, so sloppy. I'll have to clean this up. Okay. Now, we still... Ooh, are these guys dry? Okay, let's not try and push them at... Let's try not to tilt this far too back. I glued them on, but I think the glue's still drying. Let's get some blue on these guys. And we're doing the coats. We can move this aside for now. Hooah! There's a YouTuber that mostly discusses old retro Warhammer stuff, models like this, what many in the community call Oldhammer. And on his YouTube, he recently posted a picture of this guy, the eyeball, the one holding like this weird binocular thing, and it was a catalog picture, right, from the 80s, and I was like, I'm painting that model right now. It's kind of funny timing, and someone actually chimed in also on that picture or post, and he said that this model is highly sought after. I don't know about that. I don't really know about like the rarity of Games Workshop models or anything. It's not something that I pay attention to, but it's interesting nonetheless. Yeah, I can tell that the glue isn't perfectly set on this model because they're kind of shaking a little bit as I'm painting them. It's not what you want, but we'll carry on. And yeah, these guys have gloves and armor on top of the clothing and all of that. I'm planning on mostly kind of keeping it very simple. And we're all going to just paint that blue. We're not going to like color the gloves something different, blah, blah, blah. I think if it was like, if this was me like in my teenage years, I would definitely paint like every single item something different, right? From the gloves to the pouches to the armor, I painted something different. But these days, I'm kind of the mindset that in order for the army to look more uniform, well, there it goes. In order for the army to look more uniform, it would be best to stick to a singular color scheme or a more unified one. Hey, Bacon. Are these Rangers? No, they actually are the these are the models that accompany the Anti-Grav platform. They're the ones that come with this. They manage it. I'm pretty sure that they had these things in Dawn of War, but they simply acted independently. Like they would actually just move on its own, right? In Dawn of War. But technically, yeah, they should have two guys that accompany it, that move it along, because it's not something that has like a mind of its own that moves around. Although that's how they act in Dawn of War. And so in the latest model kit that's coming out for the Eldar Guardians, you have the Guardian models and the support platform that accompanies them as a single unit. So this actually kind of works out, even though this is a much older model compared to these. I'll probably have them all hang out together as a unit. That's the plan, at least. I don't know if you can hear the music, Bacon, but do you recognize it? It's probably a little faint. Oh, you can faintly hear something. Yeah, it's kind of weird because it's pretty loud from my end. But anyways, it's probably for the best that it's faint. That way, I don't possibly run into any kind of issues later on. But it's Radiant Historia, actually. Really good soundtrack. And another game that I really didn't play all that much, but I enjoyed the soundtrack. So whereas Arcanum had a lot of violin kind of acting as the hero of the sound of the composition, this one has a lot of piano, which is pretty cool. Okay, so I think okay. Let's finish painting this blue onto this guy here, and what I'll do is I'll re-glue this guy back on. This guy's a lot more securely glued. Yeah, Radiant Historia. They actually re-released that game on 3DS, I think, with different graphics. And I think that they didn't look as good. The character portraits, they did not look as nice as the original release. But what they should have done is actually put it out on like a big boy console, like the PS4 or the Switch. You know, I have no idea if it's available on the Switch, but it should be. I think more people need to try out that game. I mean, it was good from what I played. I just didn't get around to finishing it. And I believe that game was in some ways a spiritual successor to Radiata Stories, and that's a game that I played on the PS2 and liked quite a bit. But I kind of regretted selling it. I actually traded it for something else. I have no idea what. Yeah. That was a game where the big selling point was that you were going to meet a whole bunch of characters, almost like Suikoden, and that there was, in any given town, that there was like a day-night cycle that governed the NPCs' like daily routine. That they'd have like, they'd go to work and end up in a bar in the evening and then go to bed, blah blah blah. And you had to be aware of that because if you were to recruit them, you needed to know where to find them at any given point in time in the day. But in Radiata Stories, the main hook was that there was time travel, much like Chrono Trigger famously had time travel. And that was the hook for that one. Radiant Stories? Yeah, Radiant Stories. You don't think you've tried Radiata Stories? Yeah, that was a PS2 game, I believe, and it was pretty cool. If I'm, you know what, as I said, the big hook for that game was that there was multiple characters, like a bunch, and I'm pretty sure that one of the characters you could recruit was the Valkyrie from Valkyrie Profile. I'm pretty sure. I'm gonna check that because I don't want to give wrong information, but yeah, that I'm pretty sure that was the thing because it was made by Tri-Ace. I'm not sure if Radiant Historia was a Tri-Ace game. I think it is. I'm not sure. All right. This guy has like a crotch piece of armor. I guess we should paint that blue too. Okay, this guy here. Ooh. He's like glued onto that. Do I have another plastic thing? Time to ask Google Senpai. Here, let me check that. I need to actually go check if I have another little cup thing to glue onto. But let me see. Let's check that. Yeah. Valkyrie, also known as Lenneth Valkyrie, is a character in Radiata Stories. Yeah, I wonder if I got her. That's pretty cool. That's a game that I haven't actually played too much of. I have the PSP version of Valkyrie Profile, but I did not play it too much. I feel like the PS1 version's better from a visual standpoint. It seems like the Radiant Historia. Oh, okay. Yeah. So the one I'm getting confused with the names, but yeah, Radiata Stories. Valkyrie is you can get her in Radiata Stories, not Radiant Historia. Getting mixed up with these names. Yes. Okay, so give me a second, guys. I want to see if I have like a second cup thing to glue my guy onto. So, BRB. All right, I found a cup. I found a cup. Oop. You know what? I should have gotten a drink of water. My mistake. I should have gone and get that. Okay. Okay, that guy securely onto there, and we'll put this guy on this. This cup is a little more flimsy, which I'm not crazy about. This one is more thick. It's gonna work out. It's just kind of awkward to hold. Well, let's just try it out. Bacon, by the way, the soundtrack of Radiant Historia is actually composed by Yoko Shimomura. Yes, I've noticed because it says here on my my playlist thingy on YouTube on iTunes, but that's really cool. Okay, let's try this one. Oh, I don't have it on here anymore. All right. Just trying to think of what else can I fire up on my playlist here. Let's just make sure that nothing's going to play that I don't want to play. Just give me a second here, folks. Even though I don't think it's a big deal, because you can barely hear it. Okay. All right. Let's glue this guy onto here. I think it'll be better to glue him onto this. Try that again. I think that'll be better. Oh, yeah, I'm definitely going to get like 2 painting handles. Not necessarily from Citadel, because I think that will be a good investment. Okay, let's let that dry. Okay. Now we need to get back to this, painting the blue and making sure it's a nice even coat. As always, gotta have a nice even coat. Okay, let's see. I think I'm just wondering if I should pick out some of these other details in the blue, but I think we'll leave it at that for now. Let's do a second coat, and that should be good enough for this. I think, okay, yeah, we can turn this over now. And thin this down a bit. Make sure that we're here in the frame. Always have to keep in mind to make sure that I actually am doing what I'm doing is actually visible. I can sometimes forget. So let's paint for a little more, and then we can take a extended break and have a little shift in our programming and do something else. I mentioned this in Bacon's stream, but earlier yesterday I unearthed some Gunpla, unfinished Gunpla that I have. There's even more Gunpla models that I have unfinished in storage, but I did bring some along with me, not in storage, in the off chance that I could get around to it. And obviously, with the current trend amongst our circle of friends here building Gunpla, I was like, all right, well, I have this. It's not painted. It's not built. Let's work on it at some point. At least let's take a look at it. So yeah, I found it, and I actually have something else too, which I'm a little bit excited about, but we can actually take a look at that stuff a little later. Just getting a second coat on this stuff. I need to I should be painting this a little more tidier than I actually have been, but it is what it is. We'll clean it up. We'll do some major cleanup later. One thing that I've kind of noticed about the Warhammer hobby in recent years, and it actually also kind of relates to Gunpla too, is just the degree to which someone engages with the world and the setting, and how much that can impact your decisions in terms of like what you're going to actually buy and pick up, or conversely how it doesn't, like how your like lack of knowledge from the world of setting and how that like impacts what you buy and choose. It's pretty interesting to me, because I think from a manufacturer standpoint, from the perspective of Games Workshop or Bandai Namco, I think that they that either way they don't mind, like whatever kind of like position you land on. I don't think that they would really mind, so long as you're buying the models. Like I see on Instagram a number of people getting into the hobby of Warhammer, and they don't necessarily know about like the lore. And I'm actually kind of more along that lines too now at this point, just because I'm so out of touch with like with the story and stuff of the Eldar, or the overall setting of Warhammer. I've kind of forgotten a lot. I've been actually watching some videos about the lore. It's pretty fun. Oh, I got startled, guys. Oh, that startled me. I have like a stack of like tin cups, and it just fell, and it kind of startled me. But anyways, no, this is why I can't play Resident Evil games. But yeah, so it's just interesting to me, because I think that there's a lot of people also like in Gunpla that don't necessarily care about like the story and the setting of the various settings, for that matter, of the Gundam, shows and stuff, and just like to build models. And again, I'm kind of like that, and I'm sure there's a lot of people like that. Even when I was a kid, even when I was a kid, I was like, I just loved the look of the models, and I didn't know anything about the characters, who was a good guy, who was a bad guy. I just I just kind of wanted something, right? And then it actually took Bacon here to, like, I would, like, show him, like, hey, I have this, and then you would, like, lend me like a VHS tape of like a movie or something, and it wasn't translated, so I basically just watch it in completely Japanese, and I was like, cool. But yeah, there's a lot of people like that. I think it's fine though. Bacon, I'm sure they don't mind as long as people buy them. Yeah, I'm sure that Namco Bandai don't mind. But in the in the same in the same breath, I feel like creating a setting and stuff is super important, right? Because then there's also a lot of people that want that setting to help immerse them into the models and the story even more. It's kind of interesting how building models and painting figures and stuff can be a very immersive experience as well. Even Lego, too. Like, so I've been painting like Lord of the Rings miniatures, right? The goblins, and here's like the Rider of Rohan. And what I would do is play like YouTube videos of like lore from Lord of the Rings, and it would just like suck you into the lore as you're painting the models. It's just so cool, right? Bacon Beer Can, as a kid, I wanted toys of certain Transformers because they look cool. Yeah, that's and then previous post, I was like that with Transformers too. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Especially when you're a kid, it's like just whatever looks cool. Who cares if it's a good guy or a bad guy? And then there's more to dig into if you want, right? If you want to explore that, it'll always be there for you. But it's a contrast between it being important and unimportant. Like, you had mentioned a 30-minute battles, 30-minute models. That line from Namco Bandai that aren't related to Gunpla, right? I was looking into that not too long ago, a few days ago, and there's even a setting for that too, right? And I think that a lot of people don't really care about the setting, but it's just really important to have. It's, as I said, it's important and unimportant to have that. Bacon, and I'm sure that that's how most people choose which army to collect in Warhammer. They don't look up the lore first. Yeah, and actually, that's a weird thing with me with the new Warhammer models for Age of Sigmar too. Especially, it's like so many of the models have like this crazy aesthetic that's so specific, right? And it's like kind of like unrelatable from a very first impression kind of look, where it's like, I think with the old Warhammer setting, it was like there's elves, there's dwarves, there's orcs, right? It's very easy to understand because it kind of has its roots in Lord of the Rings and in Tolkien, right? But over time, and especially with the new setting of Age of Sigmar, they were like, yeah, there's no more elves anymore. There's like sea elves, and now there's like light elves made out of light, and ghost elves, and blind elves, and like dark, shadowy elves, and there's no more normal. Well, yeah, like the main human force are like super heroic badasses, and I don't know. It's kind of like, because it's so far away from Tolkien, I find that it's kind of loses me, I guess. I don't know. And that might be related to why I've had like a bit more interest in the Lord of the Rings miniatures, the miniature game too. because it's just easier to relate to in a sense. I don't know. It sounds weird to say I can relate to hobbits and orcs and goblins. Bacon, and I'm sure that's how most people choose which armies. Oh yeah, I read that already. Laura's just there to justify why we like them. Yeah, and then if the story ends up being like super compelling and interesting, that's a huge bonus too, right? Like I mean that's kind of why like the toy industry blew up so much in the 80s, right? It's because they had like cartoons to go with them, right? Okay. Okay. I really need water. Gonna quickly grab some water. You guys can listen to this pause music. I'll put my my earphone very close to the. See if you can identify this pause music. This is the greatest pause music of all time. All right. So if you haven't guessed it, that pause music was from the game Eco, one of my favorite games of all time, and also one of definitely either the number one or two spot in terms of the best pause game music of all time. It's a toss up between that one, the Eco pause music, or the Battletoads pause music. That's what it comes down to. So this is the plan. Let's get this base coat done on these things. These two guys plus these. The base coat's mostly done, and then we can move on to something else. Okay. Try not to get any paint on the ground, on the basing material here, because I possibly might just leave it as is. I might not paint it. Normally, I like to leave that phase, the basing phase, for like when the model is mostly done. But sometimes I do it early like this, just because I'm in the process of basing something else, some other models which are done, and I'm like, well, I might as well base some other things too, because it's kind of like annoying to get out the glue, blah blah blah. These guys are so tiny. Like the details are so small and fine. The the modern models are much bigger, and it's kind of like a plus and minus thing. They're they're bigger, and I think that makes it easier to paint all the details in the sense that like it's a bigger surface to pick out like each individual finger, blah blah blah. But at the same time, when a model is small like this, it means you can finish it faster, which I like too. And it's also just very impressive, these metal models, to pack in as much detail that they have. And the fact that they're so small, it's really quite impressive. And that was the dividing line for a very long time between plastic models and metal models, because the plastic would have to be of a similar scale to the metal ones. However, at the time, the manufacturing process wasn't as sophisticated as it is now for GW, and so plastic models just had this reputation of having far less detail. Okay, I think we need to go in with a smaller brush to get all these details and not mistakenly slap something on where it doesn't go. So let's do that. Let's get a smaller brush. Let's get a second coat on this. But one fun thing talking about lore and setting is how like your imagination can kind of run wild with just like the framework of a setting, just like, you know, as we've been talking about, like it's both important and unimportant, and so it's nice when you have just enough of a setting in your mind, and then you can fill out the rest for yourself and sort of carve out like a small place in the universe or whatever for your own characters to live and have stories. That's always fun too. Like even when it comes to these Eldar models, right? I had read the lore and the way that the Eldar don't really have like a singular home planet, right? Instead, they live on these giant floating worlds called craft worlds. I guess all worlds and planets are floating in space, but yeah, they live on these gigantic vessels called craft worlds. And this is the color scheme of a specific craft world called Alatok. And I chose it mostly because it looked cool, but yeah, I remember looking into the lore of it, which I've subsequently forgotten, but yeah, that's just fun. And same thing with with Bretonnians and stuff too. Like that was like my first Warhammer fantasy army. I remember looking into like, okay, here's like the land, the country of Bretonnia, but where are my dudes gonna come from specifically? And I chose like this area called the Quenelles, and I remember choosing it because they live close to the forest where wood elves lived, and I thought that was kind of neat. And I could like team up with wood elves to get some wood elf models, which I never really did. Okay. Okay, yeah, I keep on saying that I'm gonna change my brush to something smaller. I'm gonna do that. Promise, promise. Just let me get this. Let me get this part here. Get these gloves. I wonder next week if we're gonna have any big megaton news news drops, info bombs for something in the game industry. I don't know if my heart can take it. Had some big ones already. Okay. You know, I'm just realizing now too. So these models here, I primed with like a gray primer. But these ones, I did with a white primer. And so as I'm applying this dark blue, it's even darker than if it were to be on a white primer. So that might mean I have to kind of build up a little more, but maybe we can use this to our advantage and kind of paint with the intent of using some of that gray to show through and start working up the highlights. Yeah, maybe we'll do that. But let me get a sip of water here. Bacon, MS buying EA. That would be interesting. You know, a part of me think I'm pretty sure that like Activision was in a position to be purchased simply because of their awful, the awful news that they had been sort of stuck in, all the shitty things that they have done for the past year or whatever. And so EA hasn't really been subjected to the same kind of scrutiny in terms of controversies and sexual harassment cases, blah, blah, blah. So in that sense, I don't know if EA is going to be in a position, but maybe they will be. Maybe they are. Because much like EA, I feel like, much like Activision, EA kind of, they're in a very precarious spot. I would say like they kind of have just like a small handful of games that are perennial moneymakers for them, and even then, some other games which are supposed to be big, like a big deal for them, haven't really panned out. Like the latest Battlefield apparently has not been doing well for them, and they're considering going into free to play now. Trying to get a good angle here where I can see and get the cape and everything. Also, remember that EA signed an exclusive contract with Disney to produce Star Wars games. And yet, to this day, they've only really made, like, how many Star Wars games? Like, 2? 3? And one of them was highly successful. The Fallen Order, I think that did well for them. And that was like a single-player game. Initially, they only wanted to make, like, multiplayer games like Battlefront. And the first Battlefront, I think, did pretty well, but the second was a disaster for them. And what else? Oh, they made a VR game, but, you know, obviously at this point in time, VR isn't like as widespread as maybe it should be, so sales on that probably aren't like through the roof. And I think at this point the contract has expired or something, or it's been renegotiated to some extent, because now there's Star Wars games from other companies coming out, I'm pretty sure. Other developers. And they even canceled a number of other Star Wars games that they had planned on making. So, yeah, what the hell? Okay, so we're kind of trying to be neat and tidy here. And I also need to do the face. I just realized. I also realized that I should have probably painted the eyes first. For any miniature, I think it's best to do the eyes first. And I keep on forgetting that. And that goes... crap. That goes back to... That goes back to what I was talking about earlier. Like, you want to paint, like, I was talking about, like, you want to do the lowest layer first, if you imagine it in clothing. And, like, the face oftentimes is kind of like the best thing to do first, and especially the eyes. Because then if you mess up the face or the eye, you can kind of go back and do it later. Or you can fix it up without getting paint on anything else. Okay. Okay, gotta clean our brush. Bacon, there's the KOTOR remake coming out, so I guess the contract is up. Yeah, it's up, or it's been renegotiated to some extent. I don't really know, like, because it's a remake, maybe it's outside of the contract, right? Because it's like it's not a new game per se. Although my understanding is that KOTOR remake is going to kind of reconsider a lot of stuff from the ground up, like including the combat. I think I read that somewhere, which is interesting. Like, in the sense that, will they be doing it kind of like what is it? Kind of like Square Enix did with Final Fantasy Remake. All right. So most of the base coating is done for these models. I need to get in there with some more detail on the base coating, but that's mostly done for these guys.